Hello, I've been wanting to make a video for quite some time, but I've just been too goddamn lazy. For the past month or so, I've been getting got by AI videos. I won't realize it at first. So that's why I wanted to record this, which is not scripted. I'm not used to doing unscripted stuff. I'm actually kind of bad at it. So hopefully there's not too many cuts in this. But the point is that it's distinctly not AI, because you're going to hear me mess up probably a lot. So I've been wanting to make something Marvel Legends related, just, to stop thinking about other things. And there was recently a fan stream for April, and I thought maybe I can do something that's closer to an audit, both from my perspective, because I've been a collector for 25 years at this point. Jesus. And distinctly, I wanted to try and think like a brand manager at Hasbro, because there's a ton of decisions being made that are not just the figures.
Without further ado, we have our X-Men 97 inspired Cyclops Visor.
So first they brought out the, it's a little bit of a mouthful, Marvel Legends series, Marvel Studios, X-Men 97, Cyclops Visor, which looks great. It looks almost perfectly designed, maybe a little big, but who cares, whatever. I don't have a problem with the product itself, more so with the branding. Most of you are collectors who are watching this video. You don't associate Marvel Legends with anything other than the 6-inch figures, right? But there have been many different sub-brands that have been labeled Marvel Legends that are not 6-inch figures over the years. And one of those things is these premium cosplay items. I forget how they, designate them. But my main issue is what if I'm a big box store, like Target or Walmart, even though I know they don't carry these cosplay items. And let's say the cosplay items aren't selling well, even though they definitely are. And I look at that and I see Marvel Legends next to the name, and then I see Marvel Legends next to the 6-inch figures. Could that create confusion with these distributors because of this brand confusion? And it goes the opposite way too. What if the 6-inch figures, let's say, Marvel has just released 2 stinky movies, and nobody likes the characters enough to buy the figures, and they just rot on shelves. And then the person in charge of ordering more stock of these items sees Marvel Legends next to these premium roleplay products that, let's say, is selling amazing, and they hesitate, and maybe they order less because the brand is Marvel Legends. I personally don't think the Marvel Legends brand should be associated with anything other than the 6-inch figures to prevent confusion. These premium roleplay products, they could be called Marvel Premium Series or Marvel Roleplay Series or Marvel Collector Series. I don't know. Because the brand really is Marvel. It's the Legends sub-brand that is associated with the 6-inch figures. Anyway, so if we move, let me click around here. We move on to the actual figures. Dan and Mr. Stevie, who I appreciate his enthusiasm,
Who knows?
show a new Lady Deadpool and a dark Hawkeye. And we'll start with Lady Deadpool first.
So first up, we have
Lady Deadpool.
Now she's on the super articulated female body. I'm not even sure there are any new parts here exactly. It looks like it's a lot of reuse from the, I want to say Sauron wave, maybe Strong Guy wave Lady Deadpool, who is very, very gummy, as all female characters on that, what it was, the Kate Bishop body mold. Just like all the other female figures, when you compare them to their male counterparts, it's missing articulation. And in this case, not too much. It's the same as all other female figures, except for the teen buck, for whatever reason. It's missing boot cuts, or at least a cut below the knee, which is important because ankle rockers aren't a perfect approximation of the human ankle. And that just is not present on most female figures. Now, I'm not saying it needs a boot cut exactly, but on Lady Deadpool specifically, she's got bands on her ankles that could have easily hidden an ankle cut. You know, I appreciate these super articulated bodies, but it's really just bringing them up to par with all the other, you know, modern action figure lines. They're not really super articulated, they're regular articulated, which is a line. It's a line from my video that I shot 10 months ago and still need to finish editing, even though it's 95% done. Anyway, what's more with Lady Deadpool is that the character choice is good because people associate it with Deadpool and Wolverine, so they can potentially get, you know, the MCU collectors buying this figure as well. It's really not that much different from the movie version, other than you're missing a lot of the texture. But, you know, to maybe a more casual collector, they could easily mix this in with their movie collection, which is good for business. Then moving on to Dark Hawkeye.
So first up, we have Hawkeye.
I'm really glad to get this character. But Dark Hawkeye is an interesting choice. I feel like it's something that they didn't quite know where to put, so they just threw it in this wave, which I'll talk upon later. Do you notice that the torso is new for some reason? It's got the diaphragm joint. Why? How many variations of the Sunfire body is this now? Because this piece, I'm pretty sure, already exists. If people recall the Sinister Maximum Spider-Man, what the fuck was it? Superior Doc Ock. I know, we all know that Avengers Doomsday is going to be releasing later this year, and they're going to have to make a bunch of really hyper unique figures for that movie. And so they have to, you know, cut costs somewhere. Why not just reuse that Sinister Spider-Man upper torso? So this just adds to the growing redundant lexicon of the Sunfire body, which is, by the way, it's 10 years old. This body has been used longer than the Bucky Cap body from 2014. And it makes sense that they used this body, despite, you know, my complaining, because both Hawkeye and Bullseye were on this body. So I appreciate the consistency. But again, as a collector, I'm still going to get this figure, obviously. Maybe try and kit bash the new and old dark-looking Hawkeye from, was it the Allfather wave, I think? And use it for my West Coast Avengers.
One character that fans have been asking for a while.
I know that guy. I've seen him before.
Oh, so we get the HasLab Ghost Rider, which is good. It's good to see that figure in some form. But honestly, I don't have much to say about Ghost Rider. He looks fun. It's a shame about the waist swivel that just sort of cuts his logo insignia completely in half. But what are you going to do?
So here's my US agent from like 94, I want to say.
US agent, ForceWorks suit, with a shield that looks like candy for some reason, and like glue. This body has got some depth, got some curves. It's thick. It's a great replacement. Let me rephrase. It's an excellent replacement for the Grim Reaper buck that even modern Captain Americas are on, even though they might not actually share many parts with the original. But it's going to be nice, especially for customizers, because this is going to be easy access to that Punisher body that they can now reuse for other things. What's also nice about a couple of these different bodies, specifically Vulcan and the Punisher 2-pack body, is that some of the limbs are the same size, so that they can, you know, as a designer, you can swap those out. They can share parts, it seems like, at least. Who knows if they actually do that. And that's a great way of saving money and also preventing, you know, forearms from becoming too large. There's actual, you know, curvature to the muscles. It doesn't just look like a cylinder.
So first up, I have, within the newer Ultimate Universe, we have Ultimate Wolverine.
They show off Ultimate Wolverine Not much to point out here other than it's using, again, that old torso setup when, you know, they updated the Wolverine body with the, what is the 85th anniversary Astonishing Wolverine. It even shares the arms, looks like, the longer bicep. And it even shares the legs that probably don't move, the boot cuts that are glued in place. When you're designing figures that, and you have to attach, you know, a lower boot to the knee, they're often two distinct pieces of plastic because they have to be cast in different colors. And so wouldn't you think they would just make a peg there instead of wasting money on glue?
I got a new lady in my life, and that is Psylocke from X-Men Outback.
This was my favorite reveal of the wave, armored Psylocke. Actually armored Psylocke, not just Lady Mandarin Psylocke. I have been waiting for this version of the character for years. This was my Psylocke that I needed to put in my collection, which is actually the display that is directly behind the camera. I don't know if I'll show it yet because maybe I want to wait for this figure before I actually show it off. It looks like it widely reuses the Lilandra figure, aside from the torso, obviously, because it doesn't have those riveting lines going through it. It looks great. And then and the deco applied is funny. It is just literally what is in the front of the figure. It does not extend all the way around, which is maybe a little silly. But if they're going to cut corners, that's where I want them to cut corners, because you can take a paint pen and fill in those lines yourself. Even though you're spending, you know, upwards of $30 per figure, which you are with tax, I would rather do that than not get this figure at all. The one thing I'll say, maybe different color for her hair, just to contrast it a little bit from her hood and cape, but looks excellent. Favorite thing of the wave.
Who do you have, Steve?
I have the beautiful, slightly dangerous when she wants to be, Marina from Alpha Flight.
And then they show off Marina. Really, really interesting to get this character. And it makes sense, given the Build-A-Figure of this wave. But I think what is most interesting for collectors is that she gets a new upper and lower torso that matches perfectly with Namorita from New Warriors. So it's very, very likely that we are going to be seeing a pale-skinned version of Namorita pretty soon.
Also, with Alpha Flight, we have Box here. Our first time ever doing Box.
Roger Box! Goodness me.
A diaphragm joint, and he's got an actual ball and socket waist. You don't see that on figures, hardly ever. If you do, they're hyper-specific. The only thing he doesn't have, again, is boot cuts, which for a larger character like this, even has a neck joint. That's nuts. Double jointed limbs, and it's in his, I want to say, first appearance, which I'm kind of glad about because it's doesn't look like it got, 90s-ified yet. This is going to go great with an Alpha Flight display. Marina might even become a good figure to pick up for this torso, specifically if you're a customizer. I'm sure people could use that for a lot more than just Box.
I decide who I want the most, who I want to take home. I'm so enamored.
Really, really great wave. Again, I got them all, aside from Ultimate Wolverine, because he doesn't actually come with a Build-A-Figure piece. And he's too contemporary for me. It's just I try and limit my display to the classic stuff so I don't spend money like this. What I like about this wave specifically is that it feels like an old school, like Swoosh Forums wish list wave. It seemed like every time someone would do a wish list, the Build-A-Figure would always be Box, and it would be a bunch of random characters. And it is weirdly nostalgic for me, seeing Box and seeing this lineup. Now, if I were a brand manager, I would have a problem with this. It really feels like a random assortment of characters when it could have been a free X-Men wave, or maybe, like a 2017, 2016 era Deadpool wave. And in fact, you know, if you get rid of Ghost Rider, if you get rid of Dark Hawkeye, and you get rid of US Agent, you have half of this wave is a X-Men wave. And I feel like having a theme for these characters would help boost sales at least a little bit. Now, maybe they were forced to move things around because something was delayed. But if I were a brand manager at Hasbro, I would take out US Agent, Dark Hawkeye, and Ghost Rider, and maybe replace them. You know, the magic figure that is in the new Secret Wars wave? That seems like a strange place for that character to go. Let's say Magic replaces Ghost Rider. That kind of makes sense, right? We really need a villain in this wave. I mean, Dark Hawkeye kind of works, but he's working as a hero in the story. You know, maybe you just need a re-release. What comes to mind is the Game Reverse Sentinel 2-pack. If they just gave it a new torso with that unibeam in the center, that would make an excellent single release. And if I were Amazon, if I were Big Bad or any other fan channel retailer, I would want that. Now, who could replace US Agent? In one of my videos, I mentioned having access to these really popular A-list characters all the time. And I feel like a replacement for US Agent would have been a good opportunity to release the Maximum Deadpool way pared down, cost reduced deco-wise, but just available for people for a lower price point. That would have made this wave basically a Deadpool wave, which matches the themes from the other waves, which were very much focused on outlier X-Men teams like X-Force, like X-Factor, and some characters from the Deadpool universe, mostly Deadpool himself. But that's kind of what I'm saying, like these waves should be themed. That way, like if you order all of them, if a kid orders all of them, then they have sort of their own little team. And if they have a villain in there, then they have a team to fight against the villain. And especially if it's an army builder, that would be even better. But that's not the case. I'm still buying it. You're probably still buying it, especially if you need box. And then before we get into the Marvel Rivals stuff, Dan asks,
if there are any other teams that you are in need of us to complete, please let us know in the comments, and we will hopefully get to it.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
What other teams need completion? And there are plenty, but I'm going to throw out an interesting one. Whenever I see people posting their Avengers shots, including myself, I always see Hulk, and he's he's either the 80th anniversary 2-pack release or the 25th Marvel Legends 20th anniversary. And those are very distinctly like 70s, 80s designs. When I see an Avengers display and I see the Hulk, I want to see 60s Jack Kirby-ass looking Hulk. So my pitch is for a new Hulk with maybe something closer to like an Alex Ross head to represent Kirby's style, because he tended to change the way he drew Hulk a lot. And one of the distinct things about Kirby's Hulk that I find really funny and could make a good feature for the action figure is that he always drew Hulk with like sometimes 5, but like 3 toes. And I think some alternate hands that have 3 or 4 fingers and toes might be really fun and a celebration of Jack Kirby. Something interesting Mr. Stevie says, and I might just let it roll here.
I am a sucker for design aesthetic that is what I call. Now you got to zoom in on me, that way. So I like things that are really beautifully designed with a slight twist. And I love the way the Marvel Legends looks and Black Series looks and the figures that we produce look. They're just lovely. But when Dwight was showing me the sculpts coming out of the Rival stuff, it was Marvel Legends that as a designer, I get incredible satisfaction from looking at.
I agree with him, 100%. I love the proportions on these things. especially, that Luna Snow figure. That is potentially the best female action figure that they have ever made. It looks fantastic. And it's because of those exaggerated proportions, I swear. It would really make their historically somewhat realistic proportions look more toyetic. It would look like it came from a comic book, which I feel like is the goal with the Marvel Legends series.
He is going to be a single, along with this next character that's also going to be a single.
Oh, he's cool.
But with a name like Marvel's rivals, why aren't Punisher and Moon Knight in a 2-pack? Dan says something about the cape being large. That
This is our deluxe version of Moon Knight because he comes with 2 capes.
it's going to have to be a deluxe. That cape is a solid piece of plastic, I assume. That doesn't make a figure deluxe. Maybe deluxe packaging, but not price tag. Are people going to pay $40+ for that? If I were a kid, I would get Spider-Man and Luna Snow or Jeff the Shark and Venom over Punisher and Moon Knight separately, because it comes with 2 figures. You're not actually saving any money when you do that, but still.
Everyone knows my favorite character is Spider-Man, so obviously Spider-Man had to be here.
Spider-Man. The one problem I really have with any of these figures is that Spider-Man sucks. He looks like he sucks. For whatever reason, there's been a trend of putting Spider-Man figures back on that old archaic articulation scheme, the crunch and the waist cut. I don't understand. A character like Spider-Man needs to be able to move. It needs a range of motion, and it is not congruent with this articulation scheme.
I've gotten more big but cute as well.
He
So
is
I have
awesome.
Jeff the Land Shark right here. That's why I got my rival shirt right here for that.
I got Daredevil.
The only other thing I'll say is that, Jeff the Shark doesn't look very articulated. He looks mostly like a statue. Get a simple swivel with the limbs so that you can put some personality in the poses. But then you're getting a huge Venom figure that looks great. You could put that easily in a comic display, especially, Dark Avengers, speaking of Dark Hawkeye.
We always end typically our fan streams with a tease, so I will leave you with this right here for you to think about.
And I'll do the sound effect.
And that finally brings us to the tease. I noticed the peg on it, and considering the size, this looks like a display stand for something. I'm guessing this is probably X-Men related. I think there's a rumored X-Men 97 specific Professor X that I'm guessing is going to come with an updated hover chair and a more stylized design. And I'm guessing this is the replacement for that hovering effect that came with that Ultimate Riders Professor X. Last thing I'll say is I really love these streams. I hope they continue doing them, even if the hosts aren't perfectly consistent. Showing off what the team at Hasbro has been able to create in this kind of chaotic, fun way is really cool to watch. As long as they keep doing these every month, and depending on how many people watch this, or fuck it, like if I feel like it, I'll keep doing these if you like them, and I'll do, the regular, bigger, scripted videos specifically. I'm sort of dreading having to edit this now, because this is, it's going to be over an hour. Let me know any of your thoughts in the comments, especially if it's coming, if you're trying to think like a toy designer or a brand manager. What do you think about the characters and figures in these streams? Subscribe? Yeah, notifications if you want. I never turn on notifications, whatever. I'm Glen. This is super articulated. Or let's call this under articulated, huh? I'm Glen. This is under articulated. Thank you for watching. Goodbye. By the way, Ed moved, so he might not be featured on the channel a whole lot, but where he went is really interesting, and I hope if he's not too busy, I want to see him go to toy shows, potentially give us access to things that, you know, we normally don't see. And yeah,